Do you have money monsters getting you? Hey, I'm Matt. Welcome to Journey at Home. Our goal is to help you follow Jesus and live a better life. So hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications because we don't want you to miss any of the great content we are releasing for you. Now today we are beginning this brand new series, Money Monsters, and these next 3 episodes are designed to help each of us identify 4 different money monsters that live in our hearts and figure out the secret to slaying them, because these money monsters have a big impact on our lives and our relationships. You see, the challenge is these monsters are really hard to see. Most of you have no idea they're creating a problem for you because they are great at hiding in the shadows. They love to camouflage themselves. So your challenge is to do the hard work of shining a spotlight into every nook and cranny of your heart to try to find these monsters instead of just dismissing them or assuming they're not a problem for you at all. Now today we're going to talk about the first 2 monsters. 1, an appetite for more, and 2, pride. So let's start with this idea of an appetite for more. The numbers tell us that most of us are not content at all with what we have, even though, and this is odd, our standard of living, well, it's better than any generation before, isn't it? Americans now have a record $1.031 trillion in credit card debt, and that is growing rapidly. We also have a total of $1.77 trillion in student loan debt. It's a lot of money if you add that up. Most of it was borrowed at a high interest rate, and we're responsible to pay that back eventually. So why would we do that to ourselves? Well, I'll tell you. A new survey this year found that 57% of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency expense from their savings. That means if we're average, 6 in 10 of us don't have enough money saved to fix a car breakdown or a home repair that costs us $1,000. Which tells me we're living paycheck to paycheck. We're not saving anything. We're spending more than we make, and we're using credit cards to cover the difference. Now you might argue, well, that's because you just don't make enough money. You just need to be paid more. But I don't think that's the root problem. Think of it this way. If we took that mindset on money, I just need more. If we took that mindset and we applied it to parenting, we'd all be trying to have as many kids as possible, but giving no thought to how to raise them. And I think we can all agree that is a terrible parenting strategy. But for many of us, that is our financial strategy. I just need to make more. I just need to make more. I just need to get more, even though I'm not any good at managing what I already have. So I'm telling you, the solution, and I hope you make more, but the solution is not making more money. The solution is having more discipline and learning contentment. But here's the irony. You can also be on the other end of the spectrum, and you can be really good with money in the sense of you've got plenty of financial margin. You're doing okay. There's money in the bank. You don't carry credit card debt. You have savings. You've got investments for the future. But the money monster of pride can still trip you up. Now here's why. Possessing wealth doesn't make you good at managing wealth. Just because you have money doesn't mean you're actually good with it. At least not good in the way that God defines being good with money. According to Jesus, being good with money isn't just about knowing what to do with your money. It's also knowing what your money is doing to you. Because listen, money is always doing something to us. And if you don't have the discipline to fight what money naturally does to you, you're going to get wrecked by these money monsters. So the Apostle Paul, he talked about this a lot. He made this very point in a letter that he wrote to his friend and protege, Timothy. Now, Timothy was a young pastor to Christians who were living in the port cities that were around Ephesus. In these cities, they were epicenters of trade and wealth in the first century. So there were a lot of wealthy individuals who were part of these cities. They're now following Jesus, and they're part of the churches in these cities. And Paul knew that these people faced some unique challenges that money brings. So he instructs Timothy on how to pastor and guide these people to avoid these money monsters that creep into all of our hearts. So here's what he said. He said, Timothy, I want you to command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain. Now, I'll just pause here because what Paul's explaining is that money does something to people. Money pulls us towards pride. I mean, when we're arrogant, when we got an inflated sense of self-worth, it's often, and this is odd, but for some reason it's often because we think our net worth inflates our self-worth. Our identity gets tied to our possessions, and we measure our value by the value of the things we have. Now that for us starts somewhere in middle school, and I don't know that ever fully goes away. Because the more you have, the more superior you feel. You see yourself as smarter and better looking and more competent. It's totally irrational, but it's real, isn't it? Pride also pulls us to put our hope in what we have. So the more we get, the more we tend to trust in what we got because, well, money makes us feel really safe, secure, and self-sufficient. So every day, your goal, my goal, is to have enough money to be able to swipe a card or write a check if you're old school because you want to have enough to fix any problem that threatens your life. And listen, that starts as a good thing. I mean, you should plan, you should save responsibly. But the more you get, the more you're pulled to put your hope in what you got. And the more you're pulled to believe money is a solution to every problem. I'll give you a personal example. When I was in my early 20s, my car broke down. And I remember praying for God to provide the $350 it was going to take to fix it. And the reason I remember praying that's because I didn't have $350 to fix it. And God actually did answer that prayer and provide, by the way. That's a story for another day. But as I was reflecting on that recently, I noticed this. Guess what I do now when my car breaks down? I swipe a card or I stroke a check. I do not have to pray for God to provide. Do you know why? Because He's already provided it. But if I am not careful, I will confuse the provider with the provision. I'll try to build up enough money to protect me from everything that might go wrong, not just my car breaking down. And the problem with that is, one, I'm forgetting everything I've got came from God, but I'm also chasing something that's an impossible goal. I'm chasing a line that I can never reach. But we all have a tendency to start to hoard money and to hoard stuff to try to make us feel safe and secure. That is the gravitational pull of money. It's always pulling you towards arrogance, and it's always pulling you towards hoping in riches. It's always pulling you towards wanting more. And listen, you cannot avoid that pull any more than you can step into a river and avoid the downstream current. You are going to feel it. If you don't want to get you, if you want to find safety and security that cannot be shaken, then you've got to have the discipline to combat that pull. You have to be intentional about fighting it. And the Apostle Paul gives us a plan to beat those money monsters. Now, the plan requires one change in mindset and two habits to develop. So here's the change in mindset. He said, instead of just going with the flow there, why don't you put your hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment? So Paul says, okay, let's just start by recognizing God provides you with everything you have. In other words, you can't think like you're the owner of your riches. You got to think like a manager. See, owners think they are the reason they have all they have. Financial managers, they realize, no, I'm responsible for this, but I'm not the source of it. You know, I worked hard, I made good decisions, but I didn't control where I was born or the opportunities I've been given or the gifts and abilities and talents that I have that I use to make money. All that came from God. He's provided everything I have. Now, once I recognize that, then my hope can shift from all of my provisions, this money and this stuff, to the one who provided it. And when that happens, now I'm willing to follow the plan that my provider has for His stuff that He has placed under my care and in my hands. And that plan involves practicing two habits. Paul told Timothy, command them to, number one, do good, to be rich in good deeds, and two, to be generous and willing to share. This is the only way to combat the pull to put your hope in money. Listen, it is really hard to be arrogant if you spend all your time thinking about how to do good with what you have. It'll combat that. And you won't keep wanting more things for yourself if you're always thinking about how to generously share. So if you want to avoid the money monster that pulls your hope towards things, then you've got to have the discipline to give first, to be generous, and then save second, and then spend third. For me, I don't want to let money drag my heart in the wrong direction. So every time I get money, I'm going to give a percentage of it away to do good, and then I'm going to save a percentage of it so I have time to serve and do good in the future. I don't have to work all the time. And I'm going to spend what's left and only what's left after that. Now, I know this isn't a new idea for all of you, but it may be a new practice because it's really hard to do. And the reason is because it requires two things. These habits require trust and discipline, both of them, trust and discipline. This requires, first of all, trust in God. See, you can't do this without placing your hope in God, because this plan doesn't let me hoard for my own safety and security. If I'm giving money away, I am now having to trust that God's going to provide all I need in the future. And this is going to require discipline. It requires a discipline to say no to me so I can say yes to something better. It requires a discipline to live within my means and not borrow to buy things. But these habits, I'm just telling you, they are what keep your heart from secretly being drawn towards arrogance and self-sufficiency. It's what keeps your heart free to love people and to be at peace with what you have. So here's what I want to invite you to do. Would you spend a little bit of time looking around in your heart to figure out where your hope really is? You got to be honest with yourself. And if you realize it has shifted from your provider to your provisions to what you have, would you do something about it? Would you make a change? Would you take Paul's advice? Would you have the discipline to fight the current and the pull of money? Would you think like a manager and not an owner? Would you embrace these habits to give, save, then spend? I'm telling you, if you will, you'll be more content, you will have more margin, you'll enjoy more peace, your heart will be freer, and you'll come to know God better. Being good with money isn't just about knowing what to do with your money. It is also recognizing what your money is doing to you. So have the discipline to pay attention so these money monsters don't get you.